Perfect. And joining us here today, we have Ms. Katy Kamkar, who is a clinical psychologist for the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Welcome, Ms. Kamkar. Next, we will move to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Ms. Kamkar.
Thank you very much. Dear members of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to discuss mental health supports for our jurors. I'm Dr. Katy Kamkar, clinical psychologist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, assistant professor within the Department of Psychiatry, University of Toronto. I'm also director of Badge of Life Canada, which is a peer-led national charitable organization for police, corrections, first responders across Canada who are dealing with psychological injuries suffered in the line of duty. I'm also serving on the Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment, National Policing Research Committee. I'm also part of the Scientific Advisory Committee, Anxiety Disorders Association of British Columbia, as well as a founding and credentialed member of the Canadian Association of Cognitive Behavioral Therapies. Do our jurors need access to mental health support? The answer is yes. Mental illnesses play a major impact on our economy. The estimated annual healthcare costs are about 51 billion Canadian dollars, driven in part by the fact that mental health problems are associated with reduced productivity at work, increased absenteeism, sick leave, short-term and long-term disability. The costs associated with mental health disabilities are also higher than those of physical-related disabilities and 7 times more likely to reoccur. Focusing on the mental health promotion, prevention, and early intervention would benefit the public, the employers, workers, families, insurance companies, and our society. The focus would produce a positive return on investment, including reduced social, occupational, mental, and physical disability, reduced medical utilization, improved therapy outcomes and prognosis with a return to a healthier functioning, improved social and family relationships, and improved well-being and quality of life. Serving on a jury can lead to increased stress level, as well as significant psychological distress and emotional difficulties, including feeling anxious, depressed, helpless, and overwhelmed. The emotional experience can increase vulnerability to psychological disorders, including depression, anxiety disorders, substance use disorders, as well as trauma and stressor-related disorders. Within the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, DSM-5, there is a greater recognition and understanding of vicarious trauma, which can occur after experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to aversive details of traumatic events. Our jurors can be exposed to diverse traumatic and gruesome evidence during their service through detailed written materials, photographs, audio content, videos, graphic verbal descriptions. Jurors also tend to witness firsthand the emotional impact traumatic events can have on victims, families, and witnesses. The exposure to such evidence and sequelae tends to be repeated throughout the day and over a period of time. There are additional stressors that compound the risk for mental health problems among jurors, including feelings of isolation, limited social support, and fear of making a mistake. In addition, there are jury discussions, deliberations, verdict renderings that involve worry and anxiety about trial-related decisions, including determining the outcome of trials, such as the guilt or innocence of a defendant. The stressors are further exacerbated by social and time pressures inherent in providing jury service. In some cases, trial materials resembling a juror's own personal history can substantially increase vulnerability for mental health problems. Similarly, materials involving violence or crimes against people or crimes involving children also tend to increase vulnerability to mental health problems. We need to implement a care plan for jurors, and that care should begin early as part of pre-service preparations. Provide education about the potential impact of traumatic material during the jury service, common psychological symptoms one might experience, what constitute normal reactions, and what reactions should be taken as warning signs for engaging more help. Healthy coping resources should be provided prior to trial to help with anticipatory anxiety and its transition from normal life to jury service. The same resources should be available during the trial to minimize the negative consequences of service. During the trial, there should be a support system. For example, social and psychological support in place to help reduce sense of self-isolation, maintain jurors' mental health and well-being, provide adaptive and healthy coping with feelings of helplessness, anxiety, stress, or any emotional difficulties. Funding and access to evidence-based mental health interventions following court case should be available when needed. Mental health experts should be available for providing evidence-based mental health services. Consultation with a mental health professional, psychologists and/or psychiatrists should be strongly recommended for an accurate diagnosis and discussion of various treatment options. Contact information should be provided to help access additional mental health services if needed. Evidence-based cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is effective for numerous psychological disorders and is at least as effective as medication. Research suggests that CBT offers the most benefits when completed with a trained mental health professional. The gains that are observed with CBT are long-lasting and tend to be maintained longer than improvements achieved by medication alone. Upon meeting with the healthcare professional, it is also important to establish clear treatment plan and goals and to monitor progress toward those goals. Dear members of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to discuss mental health support for our jurors. Providing funding for evidence-based treatment and having a support system in place for our Canadians who are performing such important civic duty would be essential for all the reasons just mentioned and will contribute to the mental health promotion of Canadians and be a positive return on investment, and most importantly, the very human thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. We will now move to the criminal lawyers.
Counselor. And at the same time, I'd like to ask the opposite question of Dr. Kamkar, whether group counseling during the course of the trial would be effective. So maybe we'll start with Ms. Davies or Dr.
Why
Kamkar.
why don't you start?
Thank you. Because I was actually, even when we had finished that conversation, I was actually thinking about it and I wanted to include something. So thank you for that. People can still benefit without necessarily talking about the content of the trials and the materials, which I understand, the legal restrictions. People can really learn evidence-based cognitive behavioral therapy skills and strategies to manage anxiety, mood changes, or any emotional distress. So it will be wonderful, again, preventative strategy. So again, we do benefit from evidence-based CBT strategies, just generally speaking, how to manage my emotions, how can I manage my sleep, how can I manage any negative thoughts or worries that I might be going through, without, again, talking about the content. So those general strategies, in addition to, as you mentioned before, education can be tremendously beneficial as well.
That could be done very effectively in a group context?
Yes, it can be done in a group as well. So in terms of, Ms. Davies mentioned education, of course, and then also in terms of, evidence-based CBT strategies and skills for better management of, variety of skills and strategies. Again, we can learn to better manage our emotional distress or any distressing thoughts we might experience, healthy coping, unhealthy coping, normal reactions, warning signs of stress, etc., etc.
Thank you.
Just finish.